Welcome back to Mark My Words Football Podcast with Rob and Scott. And NFL Week 1 is in the books, and just what a weekend it was. Watching these games, I've just felt right in my element, right back into the swing of football things, and I hope you did as well, as it was quite a fun weekend with a lot of just great games going on. And we're going to jump right into things here with our recap of Week 1. Start things off like we always do with our recap of the Buffalo Bills. And out in Orchard Park, the Bills had a fun one for their season opener against the Arizona Cardinals as they escaped to the win of 34-28. And I think obviously the biggest story of this game is quarterback Josh Allen. Allen just putting on a spectacular performance with 4 touchdowns, 2 through the air and 2 on the ground, and just being extremely efficient without having to really do too much, going 18 of 23 for 232 yards and 137.7 passer rating. The ground game was able to get some things going, with James Cook getting 71 rushing yards on 19 attempts. And you really saw the offense be pretty good this game, like surprisingly good from what I thought they might be. I thought the offense might have some issues, but really it looked smooth and not a whole lot of incomplete passes or just running into a brick wall or anything like that, like I thought it might be. I guess what more had been the issue for this team was that it started this game when their defense looked bad. And that was not something I really expected. But Taron Johnson, their all-pro cornerback there, going down early and could possibly miss some time, could be bad for them. But yeah, that defense was not looking right. Looked like they couldn't stop Arizona for a while. But after those first 3 drives, really only allowed that 1 field goal and tightened things up well. So like kudos to McDermott and that staff for being able to adjust on the fly like that. But truly for me, the ability to go out and score 34 points and the offense to flow as good as it did, it really is a huge deal for me and gives me a lot more confidence in this team for this season. And another little nice note is rookie wide receiver Cam Coleman leading the team in both targets, yards, and receptions. So a good little start for him, although not a ton of yards, only 51. The ball was just spread around nicely to everybody, and honestly, I liked the game plan, and I liked what I saw from that Bills team today. And after that, we'll head over to Green Bay, who was down in Brazil facing the Philadelphia Eagles and fell to the Eagles by a score of 34-29. And obviously, the biggest story out of this game came right at the end when Jordan Love went down with what looked like could have been an ACL injury, but thankfully it looks like it is not. But appears that he still will miss a little bit of time, as it looks like Malik Willis will start this week versus Indianapolis. But going into the game itself, it did look like there was some very sloppy stuff from the Packers offense. And the defense just kind of looked average, just kind of like they'd been before. There were some big communication issues on defense, specifically related to Quay Walker. Now that Devondre Campbell's gone, Walker has the green dot and leading that defense, and there was definitely some miscommunication kinks there. It wasn't all bad. There were some great plays on both sides of the ball and a good amount of potential on display, but just very clunky and then smoothing over to do. They got to have better discipline over penalties, and it didn't help that the field sucked. And it really looked like there were some chances that were squandered when they didn't get the points off the turnovers, because that really could have turned the tide for them and won them this game. Because all in all, this game was very close in almost all metrics. Passing, rushing, total yards. Like, really the only thing is where you got the turnovers, but they just didn't help. And I'd like to see maybe a little bit better on third down as well. I'm going 3 out of 11, and you're just getting just a touch outgained by Philadelphia in time of possession. But yeah, the Packers season could be very much up in the air, depending on how long Jordan Love could be out. And now it is time to bring back one of my personal favorite segments, the NFL's Clown of the Week. Everybody loves a good clown, and now it's time to meet the NFL's Clown of the Week for this week. And this week, the NFL's Clown of the Week is Las Vegas Raiders head coach Antonio Pierce. The Raiders were down by 6 points with 7 minutes to go in the game. They were on a 4th and 1 at the Chargers' 43-yard line, and instead of going for it, Pierce decides to send out his punting unit and punts the ball away, and basically just ends the game for his team. Just what an insane decision to not go for it there. Like, how do you even not go for that? I just don't understand that at all. And after the game, when pressed on this, Pierce said it was a long one and that his punter had put a few pinned back during the game. What is the best case scenario if he actually is able to do that again? Your defense gets a stop and you have to drive all the way back down the field to get where you were? Just absolute clown-worthy stuff. Antonio Pierce, you are the clown of the week. Whew, did that one feel good to get off my chest? But following all of that, I think it is time to get into our game picks for week 2. So we're going to get things started off here on Thursday Night Football between the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins. And in this game, Rob and I have both picked the Bills to win. Like I said, I think the Bills offense is looking very good in week 1 and giving definitely some hope for the season for them. And Miami, on the other hand, their offense looked very stale to start that game, as did the Bills, but were able to storm back into things and defeat the Jacksonville Jaguars. Rob wants to note, though, he says don't overreact on the Dolphins. The Jags shot themselves in the foot and handed Miami that win. So Rob is fading the Dolphins here. He's saying don't overreact. Dolphins are not that good. And we both will be picking the Bills for this one. And it should be a fun game. They usually have been fun between the Bills and Dolphins as of late, as they're two teams that will be vying for this divisional championship this year. And Josh Allen has absolutely owned the Dolphins. I'd honestly considered picking the Dolphins this one, but just the history of Josh Allen versus this team, I'm just going to go with, be a homer, and pick my Bills for this game. And after that, going to the 1 o'clock window on Sunday, we have the Dallas Cowboys and the New Orleans Saints. And I will have Dallas winning in this one, and as will Rob. Yeah, Dallas, I think, ended up getting a pretty good win over Cleveland last week. Their stars really coming out to play, and the defense really was incredible for them. I think really proving out what my thoughts were about them coming into the season. And I think they are going to be a contender in the NFC and handily win that division. And on the other hand, you have the Saints, who really had a great win versus Carolina. But similar to what Rob had said about Miami, I would say absolutely don't overreact to that Saints team. I think they really just beat up on a bad Carolina team. I mean, scoring 47 is no small feat, but I don't think that the Saints can replicate anything close to this. Don't get me wrong, Derek Carr was efficient. He certainly was. And good for them. But, you know what? But I think this should be a shellacking by the Cowboys this week and should be a good win for them. And then after that, we have got the Detroit Lions and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And in this game, I will have Detroit winning, and Rob has picked the Buccaneers. Detroit didn't have the greatest starts to their game, but the Rams left open the door, and you know what? When the door's left open, that's what I want to see from my good teams. And I think the Lions really came out and proved that they absolutely are a good team and one of the top contenders in the NFC. That overtime drive on offense just looked absolutely incredible, just perfectly executed. Like, honestly, just Dan Campbell's dream. And in that drive, and I've just liked what I've seen from the Lions so far, and I really think this is going to continue and will this week. And I think they will get a good win versus the Buccaneers. Well, Rob, on the other hand, he says that we are both too low on Tampa Bay. He says that I know the Commies are bottom feeders, but Baker looked excellent, and the Bucs offense completely bullied the Commies. I mean, I would agree. Baker Mayfield did look very good, but I would be a little cautious to say that I believe Tampa Bay is going to be able to replicate that again. I don't think that we're going to be seeing that on a whole regular basis. I still don't really think that the Buccaneers are going to make the playoffs. I think they can have some splashy weeks, but overall, I don't think that they are going to be a consistently good team or make the NFC playoffs. And after that game is going to be the Indianapolis Colts and the Green Bay Packers. And in this one, I'm going to take the Colts, and as will Rob. Yeah, it looks like Jordan Love is going to be out for this one, and with Malik Willis getting the start, I think we both have some confidence in an Indianapolis team to get the win. I have really liked what Shane Steichen has done, and man, just an interesting game for Colts last week. They hung in there versus Houston, and Anthony Richardson ended up with 3 throws over 50 yards, showing off his big playability, but on the other hand, showed off his inconsistency and recklessness with one really bad interception, and then only completing 9 passes throughout that game. So, I mean, you take your lumps with Richardson, but the potential was absolutely there for him. But I think that Steichen's going to be able to rein him in, and the Colts are going to be able to get a nice win over the Packers, as I think they are a well-coached and talented team. And without Jordan Love, I don't have a whole lot of faith in the Packers, as they are still trying to put some pieces together in a lot of ways. Following that one is going to be the New York Jets and the Tennessee Titans. Titans end up blowing one pretty badly to the Chicago Bears this week, and man, just what a rough one for them. Will Levis just on his knees there after he threw just an awful interception. And he could tell right away he knew what he did and just absolutely regretted that throw terribly. But I think I have seen some things that I did like from Tennessee. Like I'd mentioned going into this week, Tennessee could be at least a little fun. Levis has certainly got some things to work out, but he's very young, very inexperienced, and I think that he could definitely get better and show off some of his athleticism. But all that being said, I will have the Jets winning this one, and as will Rob. After that, we're going to have the San Francisco 49ers and the Minnesota Vikings. And in this one, Rob and I have both picked the 49ers. Now, Minnesota ended up getting a pretty big win over the New York Giants this week, and Sam Darnold has just looked incredibly efficient, really. And people were really pretty high on them. I'm not quite sure if this is the outlier or not. I kind of hope it is. But I saw some people being like, maybe playoffs for the Vikings. Like, no, get out of here with that take. Get out of my face with that take. The Giants are not that good of a team. That game was a lot worse than I expected. I'd predicted the Giants to win that one. But I'm not putting any stock into this Vikings team. I don't have faith in Sam Darnold. I don't have faith in this team whatsoever. And in fact, I'm going to mark my words for them as well. I think, mark my words, Vikings are going to be last in their division, and it's going to be by at least 3 games. And 49ers there, I think that they absolutely have a chance to get a good win here and just continue to cement themselves as a contender in the NFC. After that one, you're going to have the Seattle Seahawks and the New England Patriots. And Rob and I will both have the Seahawks winning this one. And Seattle, they were able to squeak out a win versus Denver last week. Just such an interesting way. Ended up getting 2 safeties scored against them. Man, only a 26th team ever to do that. And Bo Nix just having some rookie meltdowns. So many interception-worthy plays that just end up falling his way. But Seattle sneaks out of there with a 26-20 win against all odds. And then, speaking of against all odds, the New England Patriots. Wow. They're able to sneak out a win in Cincinnati. And that's one that kind of nobody saw coming. That New England could really pull out the win. And it wasn't even that New England got this win on a ton of fluky plays or blocked field goals or such, like maybe Chicago did. New England just controlled the ball. They controlled game possession in this, and they didn't win in a terrible way. Like they were the better team. Dare I say they were the better team on the field this week? Truly. Now, I don't know that I'll see that happen again. I chalked that up to a little bit more of a fluke, but they did not deserve to win that game. Truly. With that being said, Rob and I will each still pick Seattle in this one. And I will be interested to see what Seattle can do going forward. They do definitely have some pieces on offense. Not that I trust Geno Smith very much, but he has some very good receivers with Metcalf, Lockett, and Jackson Smith and Jigba to play with, as well as Mike McDonald, hopefully leading a good defense there. So we will see what transpires this week. And after that, you're going to have the New York Giants and the Washington Commanders. And this one, I will pick the Giants, and Rob has picked the Commanders. Yeah, so two teams here who did not have good showings last week. Giants just absolutely awful, getting smacked around by the Vikings, and the Commanders getting crushed by the Buccaneers. And really, neither quarterback looking good at all. And it's an absolutely hilarious stat I saw about Daniel Jones. Since he signed his contract extension, he's thrown more pick sixes and touchdowns to his own teammates, 3 and 2, respectively. But just an insane stat about that. And man, yeah, things have not gone well for the Giants organization or Daniel Jones since then. But that being said, I think that they can sneak out a win here versus Commanders. And this is a team that, in the Commanders, that I think has a very similar skill level to the Giants. Yeah. If you're excited to watch this one, I'm sorry. I don't think it's going to be a very good one. So if you do decide to go ahead and watch that game, good luck to you. And after that, we're going to have the Los Angeles Chargers and the Carolina Panthers. And Rob and I will both be picking the Chargers to win this game. The Chargers getting a win, and one of the most Jim Harbaugh games of all time. Just winning just how he likes it. There versus the Raiders. And we've both picked him to get another win this week. And Carolina, man, I was saying just last week that maybe we judged Bryce Young a little too hard. Let's give him some opportunity to see what he does. Whew. That was a bad take. He was awful. Yeah, he was still absolutely atrocious last week versus the Saints. Yeah, man, that Panther team looks primed to draft number 1 overall once again. And man, things have just not gone right in Carolina whatsoever. Yeah, I would not be surprised with a very long season there in Carolina. And for the Chargers, good for them to be able to get out a nice win and doing it in the style that they'd like. But I don't have a ton of hope for this team. In an absolutely loaded AFC conference, I don't really see them making much noise. I see them more sniffing around like 7 or so wins this season and putting together some building blocks for the future. After that, you're going to have the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Cleveland Browns. And in this one, I will have the Jaguars winning, and as will Rob. And Rob would like to add in this one that Doug Peterson needs to be fired for his awful coaching on Sunday, especially going for it on 4th down, up 3 on your own 30. He really did not like that decision at all. And for me, I really do think that the Jaguars can bounce back. They went out and they did have a pretty good start to that game versus Miami, but once again, they just blew it. And that seems to be a trend lately for that team, and certainly not a good one in the least. But I do think that they will get back into the winning column versus Cleveland. And Cleveland, Deshaun Watson, something is not right mentally with that man. He is not the same person that we saw when he was quarterback in Houston. The player that I fell in love with coming out of college, that he was such a good player, and it just seems like that is all absolutely gone. Just throwing balls just out of bounds instead of to his receivers. Like, things are just crazy there. And the Browns really putting on an awful showing versus Dallas last week. So we'll have to see if the Browns can somewhat redeem themselves. But I don't think things are looking too great for a Browns team. And after that, you're going to have the Baltimore Ravens versus the Las Vegas Raiders. And Rob and I will both have Baltimore prevailing in this one. Baltimore losing from so close to tying the game versus Kansas City by just a toe, with Isaiah Likely's toe touching the out of bounds and nullifying a last-second tying touchdown. And Baltimore fell to Kansas City last week. Baltimore, I was not impressed with their offense to start last week. Just so much stuff right at or behind the line of scrimmage. Just not what I wanted to see from that offense. They were able to get into rhythm a little bit later into the game, but just so much of it just looked so out of sync. Like, it just looked so hard for them the majority of the game, and the rushing offense didn't look fantastic either, not getting a whole lot done on the ground. But that means that I do still have a ton of confidence in the Ravens, and I think they're going to get a big, big win versus Las Vegas this week. And then we'll be moving on to the Los Angeles Rams and the Arizona Cardinals. And in this game, Rob and I will both be selecting the Los Angeles Rams. And Rob has a note that he would like me to add. He says that the Rams are a 100% lock for the NFC East. Place your bets on FanDuel today. You won't get better odds than right now. I disagree. I still think the 49ers are absolutely the top team. I wouldn't bet that. But if you like what Rob has to say, I encourage you to do so. Because here on Mark My Words Football Podcast, we mark our words. We place our bets, and we look back on them. We see how we did. And we will be looking back on this one later on. So the Rams, like I talked about just a few minutes ago, just unable just to close things out. They ran so many more plays in Detroit. They had the opportunities, and they just could not shut the door. They couldn't put in the dagger. Yeah, and when that coin flip went and Detroit got the ball, man, it just seemed like it was over from that first play in overtime. I mean, to be honest, I feel like I don't quite understand all the love that the Rams had been getting. It seems like I saw a ton of it last week going to the start of the season. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think they're a good team. I think they'll make the playoffs. But I don't think they're one of the top contenders in the NFC. I mean, I would put San Francisco, Dallas, Detroit. I would put them all above them for sure. Like, for sure. I don't think that the Rams are one of the top contenders. And on the other side of things, we do have Arizona, who came also close to beating the Buffalo Bills. They looked really good, and that offense seemed to be humming for those first few drives. But an inability to get Marvin Harrison Jr. involved, only one catch for him, seemed very odd that they weren't able to do more in that fact. Arizona Cardinals could be a frisky team this season, and I think that it could be one to keep an eye on as the season goes along. But that being said, we both think the Rams will win this week. And after that, we're going to have the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Denver Broncos. And Rob and I will both have the Steelers prevailing in this one. Good old Steelers. Getting their garbo-funk terrible win versus Atlanta this week. All field goals. Just like Mike Tomlin likes it. Justin Fields not doing a whole lot of anything to help the win. But they seem to always pull out these games, don't they? Oh, we all know that too well. And Rob and I, going back and forth, as we usually do about this team, he has decided he would like to place a, mark my words, for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He says, mark my words, the Steelers will finish ahead of the Ravens this year. An absolutely bold pick here by Rob. I like it. Not that I like the pick. I like the boldness. I think the pick's terrible. I think there's absolutely no chance that happens. But good on him for predicting what he thinks. Yeah, and just Denver, they're going to take some lumps this year. Whether they're playing Bo Nix or Zach Wilson, things are not going to go well for them. It's not going to be a ton of fun to watch Broncos games this year. and the Steelers. Yeah, I don't think the Steelers are going to be very good. I stand true to my prediction that I think they're going to win around 7 games this year. This is going to finally be the year that their record indicates like who they really are. So we will move on from there. On to the Kansas City Chiefs and the Cincinnati Bengals. And in this game, I will have the Chiefs winning, and so will Rob. Chiefs. I'll just say, I was so impressed with the offense in that opening night game. I expected a lot of clunkiness. And frankly, I expected to look a lot more like what Baltimore's did, but it just looked so smooth. Like everything they wanted to do, they could do. Worthy of some huge plays. Like just anything they drew up just seemed to work. I was just super impressed by the Chiefs' offense. And yeah, they're absolutely going to be a top contender, no doubt. Not that anyone had much of a doubt. But honestly, I thought that offense wouldn't be quite this good. I thought it would be better than it was last year, but not this good. So for that, I'm pretty surprised. And I think that's going to continue this week versus the Bengals, whose defense did not look good at all last week. And really, their offense did not look too hot either. I think it was kind of concerning for the Bengals about how much duress Joe Burrow was on to start that game. Like especially with the lack of talent in New England. And 16 of Joe Burrow's first 20 passing attempts only went 5 yards past the line of scrimmage. Like, that's pretty crazy and kind of concerning. Like, that is not the Joe Burrow, the fun Joe Burrow we know. It really isn't. So, some concern in Cincinnati again to start the year. And I don't think it's going to get any better this week as they face a very good Chiefs team, who I think the majority of people would certainly predict a win from. And then after that, we are going to have the Houston Texans and the Chicago Bears. And Rob and I will both have the Texans winning in this one. And so Texans, they're also end up getting a nice win versus the Colts this week. And Houston looking good on offense. Mixon really giving them an aspect to that running game that they lacked last year. That was really one of the things that they lacked was a decent running game. And he had a huge one this week, amid 30 rushes. I mean, I don't expect to see that kind of volume again, but I guess if things are going well in the game, like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And their wide receivers really were able to eat with 117 yards for Collins and 2 touchdowns for Diggs. So the ball was really able to be spread around nice, and Houston got a nice win versus Indianapolis. Now, on the other hand, we have the Chicago Bears, who they were able to get a win after being down 17-0 to Tennessee. But it was not on behalf of Caleb Williams or that offense, as they were not able to score a single touchdown and only 92 yards passing for Williams. And it was by way of a blocked field goal and then an interception turned for a pick six that was able to get things going for Chicago and ultimately bring home the win. And Rob would also like to put out another mark my words. He says, mark my words, the Chicago Bears will make the playoffs. Caleb Williams played terribly, and yet the Bears still won. The Bears have a bunch of soft opponents early on, which will prime Caleb up to play with the big boys. With love going down for my Packers, I sadly think that the Chicago will overtake them and make the playoffs. So another interesting pick by Rob in this one. I mean, I personally don't believe in the Bears. I don't think they'll make the playoffs. But hey, maybe they will. Maybe he's right with a softer schedule. But I just think it's so difficult. If your offense is not going very well, and you're really relying on defense and special teams, it certainly isn't going to get you by teams like Houston. Following that one, we're going to have a game of the Atlanta Falcons and Philadelphia Eagles on Monday Night Football. I'll be taking the Eagles in this one, and as will Rob. Eagles getting a nice win versus the Packers on Friday night in Brazil, whereas the Falcons fell to the Steelers 18-10 and did not look good. Man, Falcons? I honestly couldn't have told you the difference between Kirk Cousins or if that was Desmond Ridder up there. Cousins looked awful. Like, that was just an atrocious game by him. Just some bad interceptions. It's nowhere near the type of play that you usually see from Kirk Cousins. I really hope that was part of the lead that he's still healing from an injury. Otherwise, this might not go well for Atlanta. But I do have some hope for them. I have the hope that maybe Pittsburgh's rush defense really just got to them that game, and they can bounce back. But it could be a tough one this week with Philadelphia, as they were looking quite good in week 1. Although I'm still not very high on Philadelphia, I do believe that in this matchup of the Birds, the Eagles will prevail. And following that, we are going to do our Against the Spread picks of the week. If you were able to follow our advice and take the bets that we gave to you, you did well. As Rob and I both hit last week, as I with the Patriots spread, as they easily covered 8.5, winning outright, and Rob with the Arizona Cardinals at plus 6.5, they were able to cover, but not to win. And this week, Rob's pick of the week is going to be the Buccaneers at plus 7. I know he really likes this one, as he does have the winning outright in Detroit. So if you were like him and are really flying high on the Buccaneers after week 1, I'd go ahead and make that bet. And as for me, I am going to be picking the San Francisco 49ers at minus 5.5. I really do like this 49ers team a lot, and like I said, I am absolutely fading the Vikings hard. I think that the 49ers can easily cover 5.5 points, and that is just my absolute favorite bet of this week to make. And after what is hopefully going to be some great betting advice, we'll get into what also shall be some great fantasy advice with Rob's fantasy starts and sits of the week. So Rob has sent us over his fantasy starts and sits of the week, along with some write-ups on each player as to why he thinks that way. So we'll get things going with the starts. Start, quarterback Baker Mayfield. Mayfield finishes at the top fantasy quarterback in week 1, throwing for almost 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. While I don't foresee that big performance versus the Lions, I do believe Baker will be playing with a massive chip on his shoulder and will look to redeem himself from last season's divisional round loss. With Jordan Love going down, Burrow showing rust, and rookies Daniels and Williams looking very much like rookies, Baker offers a high floor option as well as a high ceiling option. So start Baker Mayfield. Also start running back J.K. Dobbins. Dobbins came out of week 1 with a great performance, going 10 carries for 135 yards and a touchdown. Dobbins is clearly the go-to back in LA, and a matchup against the Panthers will be another opportunity for Dobbins to keep producing. Trust Greg Roman to feed Dobbins each and every week. Start Dobbins in week 2. And we'll move on to the sits. Rob says to sit wide receiver Jamar Chase. If you have a viable wide receiver 3 to roll out, now is the time to utilize that depth. Chase caught all 6 targets for 62 yards in week 1, but the Bengals' offense looked nothing short of awful versus the Patriots. The Chiefs boast both a great defense and a great offense, meaning that Chase and the Bengals will have less opportunities and a tough time gaining yards when they look to take the field. Look elsewhere at wide receiver this week and sit Jamar Chase. Also sit wide receiver Raheed Shaheed. No, the Saints are not good, and no, Shaheed is not Tyreek Hill 2.0. The Saints beat up on a weak Carolina defense, and Shaheed did play quite well against them. However, putting up tight wide receiver numbers. However, the Saints face a much tougher challenge against the Cowboys this week. Many fans will fall for Shaheed this week due to his gaudy stats in week 1, but don't take the bait. Sit Raheed Shaheed. And we'll have one more piece of advice to offer you for this week, as it's time for Scott's parlay bet of the week. You would have been good to not take my advice last week, as we did not hit. In fact, only going 1 for 3 on our legs. But I'm feeling pretty confident, and I'm liking my picks for this week. So this week, our picks for our 3-leg parlay is going to be the Indianapolis Colts. I have the Colts beating outright the Green Bay Packers at a minus 180 number, and no Jordan Love for Green Bay. I quite like this one, and I think this has the opportunity to move a little as it gets closer to game time. I also have the Jacksonville Jaguars over the Cleveland Browns, right now at minus 186. And Cleveland, it looks like, will start fading some more, so I do like Jacksonville to get in the winning column this week. Also have the Los Angeles Rams at minus 102. And getting the best number out of this group is really quite surprising to me, and one that I absolutely have to jump on. So this week, bet on the money line, Indianapolis Colts, Jacksonville Jaguars, Los Angeles Rams. And that is all I have today for you wonderful folks. I'd like to thank everybody for listening. And if you enjoyed, please like, subscribe, and give us a rating. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts. We hope that you've had a great week 1 watching football, and look forward to another amazing week 2 ahead of us now. This has been Mark My Words Football Podcast with Rob and Scott, and we are tuning out.